Hello, I'm Dirk Kelly. I'm here on January 1st, 2019, in our backyard in Perth, Western Australia. I've been awake since 4 a.m., working away my Christmas pudding belly, digging the land in order to restore this garden. It's not easy work, but it's real work. And at the end of it all, I've achieved something small which moves this garden a little bit forward in its larger changes. The hardest thing about this work, though, isn't breaking the ground. It isn't pulling the weeds, it isn't carrying the bricks, it isn't managing or planning the projects, and it isn't providing the capital to fund the project. The hardest thing about this work is turning up. Just being there and making the change, doing the work as small as it is, because the work's never ending. I think we all have it pretty hard as human beings because we're trapped living life on a second by second timeline. But we're able to imagine potential futures and we have access to all the accounts of what's happened in the past. So we can imagine all these possible outcomes about the things that are taking place today. But it's the day-to-day detail in which we really struggle to not only imagine what needs to happen, but take part in what actually has to happen. Right now, I'm in this backyard looking forward in my mind through 2019, and there are so many changes on the horizon that just don't look good. Problems that are so huge they threaten the continuation of all life on Earth. In the 1930s, humanity was facing the existential threat of the rise of fascism and the world wars it resulted in. Here in 2019, we're facing the existential threats of climate devastation, global mass migration, food chain destruction, infrastructure collapse, antibiotic resistance, and also the rise of fascism and a world war. What we need to challenge this is a species-level rise against the threats that we face. We need to mobilize against those who preach nationalism, against the corporations that destroy our environment, and against the governments who have allowed these simultaneous threats to grow unchallenged. Our society has to completely change if it's going to be able to handle the new reality that is opening up in front of us. A consequence of the capitalist exploits of the last 100 years, which have stripped the earth bare and given the majority of everything over to the few. So how is working in my backyard ultimately helping towards these issues? Well, as an individual event, it isn't. Ultimately, the universe is so random and chaotic in an ever-increasing manner that any single event's occurrence or non-occurrence or alternate occurrence is ultimately uneventful. But as all these individual events chain up, for me, through the formation of habits, by basically turning this gardening into something that I love, that I pay attention to, that I focus my energy on, then it will become part of something more eventful. If we're talking about and worried about the collapse of our ecology, something we can do is to work on the ecology, is to work the land that we have access to. Now, I'm really lucky here in that I have a backyard that I can spend time on. Not everyone's going to have that available to them. I totally understand that. But there are community gardens, there are vacant lots, there are places where we can all start to be a part of restoring the ecology. When social media came along, it finally gave us the ability to connect to each other and share anything with each other all over the world. But it did so inside a system, this capitalist system, where there's nothing of real value to share. Everything's been commodified to the point of it being utterly meaningless. The social media posts essentially are an advertisement to experience or own or rent some commodity. That's not what's happening in this video. It's not what's happening in a lot of videos coming out from the left. And it's something that needs to happen more, is that we produce this content showing what's going on in the world, but also showing how we're working towards making this world a better place. And as small as every individual action is going to be, all those actions together, that's the revolution. That's changing the society. And it's not just working in gardens. It's not just working to feed the homeless. It's not just reclaiming food wasted by the capitalist system. It's not just getting involved in local politics. It's not just creating YouTube videos explaining the corruption of organizations or governments. It's all those things. It's every instance of those little things added up. That's the revolution.